Riot Games released Yone over 1,800 days ago. But only OG League players remember Riot teasing Yasuo's brother as a playable champion for years before we finally saw him. From champions that don't exist in the game anymore to entire game modes and community events, these are some of the things only League of Legends veterans will remember. Starting with the stupid way Champ Select used to work back in the day. By spamming your bans and requesting roles in the chat. When you heard that old school queue pop, you were praying to the elo gods you ended up as first pick. See, not only was there no role selection or trading pick orders, but the entire team's bans were left in the hands of one single person, who half the time didn't listen to the team's suggestions and banned the 3 champs they didn't want to play against. And while we can't agree being autofilled sucks, imagine being forced to play your worst role because of bad RNG. Yep, that's right. Without any official role selection, it was up to the randomly assigned pick order to decide where you ended up. Everyone typed their preferred roles in chat and negotiated with their team about who should play where. Champ Select toxicity was definitely higher in this era of League. But rest assured, if your teammates flamed or ran it down in-game, they had a good chance of ending up in Riot's community-ran punishment system, the Tribunal. In the Tribunal, players reviewed chat logs, game stats, and other metrics to decide whether or not a particular summoner was negatively impacting the game. After taking all of the evidence into consideration, players would vote to either punish or pardon the reported player. Punishments could range anywhere from a chat restriction to a straight-up permaban. Although the Tribunal was discontinued in 2014, many players have voiced their desire to have that feature brought back, claiming that the League community nowadays is more toxic than ever before. But while the Tribunal managed to survive for nearly 3 seasons, the same cannot be said for unique jungle buffs that completely changed the way junglers played the map. See, back in patch 4.20, Riot completely overhauled the jungle, and back then this was sort of uncommon if you believe it, to give unique buffs based on which camps you use Smite on. Gromp caused enemies to take poison damage over time after they hit you, Raptors allowed you to spot and clear nearby wards, Wolves spawned a cute ghost that gave vision and spotted enemy champs in the jungle, and the Krugs caused every few basic attacks to deal bonus damage and stun camps. But that's not the only major change Riot added that patch, because while now you have the simple choice of 3 jungle pets, back then you had 4 unique smites. Although no one took Poacher's Knife, let's be real, as well as 4 unique enchantments you could upgrade your smite with. This led to some pretty busted combos, the most infamous of which was the ironically named Weedwick, who went challenging smite plus devourer and ended up solo carrying the game. And we're talking the old school point and click suppression ultimate Warwick. Now, while many old champs have been redesigned and modernized over the years, Fiora, Nunu, and now even Skarner, there are some champions that newer players will simply never be able to experience. Like old school Aatrox, whose rework in patch 8.13 is still seen as one of the most controversial Riot has made to date. Old Aatrox was a Giga Chad, using his own HP as a resource and storing up a literal well of blood to revive with if he managed to get taken down. He was also based entirely on his auto attacks, as his W was a switchable ability that caused every 3rd attack to either deal bonus damage or heal him. His ult gave him increased attack speed and attack range, and his Q let him get close enough to champions to auto them. His passive, W, and ult gave him crazy sustainability in lane and dueling potential, and a fed Aatrox usually meant the game was over. Nowadays, you have a generic drain tank / juggernaut hybrid with a super telegraphed playstyle and trading pattern. And how many of you remember the original Poppy? Whereas now Poppy is a top lane juggernaut full of CC damage and general tankiness, when she was first introduced, she didn't have much going for her. The only ability that's consistent between the 2 iterations of Poppy is her dash and wall stun E, but in the old Poppy, her Q was an empowered auto attack. Her W gave her a boost of speed and damage, and her ult made her invincible to all damage other than the one targeted champion. While that ultimate sounds extremely busted in theory, only old school players will remember how locking in Poppy 10 years ago was seen as a complete joke.
Protect you from the Nidalee Spear.
Yeah.
Thanks, man. When people assume anyone who picks a certain champion is only doing it to troll, maybe that's a good indication for an overhaul.
Remember to roll!
Riot completely saved Poppy by reworking her, which makes it even more disappointing that Riot couldn't save the old school siblings of Summoner's Rift, Twisted Treeline, and Crystal Scar. Twisted Treeline was a smaller map that was used for 3v3 matches in the early seasons of League, which consisted of 2 horizontal lanes with a jungle in the middle. There was one epic monster, the giant spider Vilemaw, located in a small upper jungle area above the top lane. In addition to the different map, there were some minor logistic differences on Twisted Treeline as well, such as each player starting with 850 gold, having an accelerated level curve, and having items that weren't available on Summoner's Rift, like the Arcane Sweeper or Lord Van Dam's Pillager. Twisted Treeline generally resulted in quicker, bloodier, skirmish-focused games. It was like a condensed version of Classic League. Twisted Treeline was hugely popular in its heyday, and even had a ranked mode of its own. While now it's been years since anyone has been able to enjoy a match on the Treeline, old school players won't forget. So, Twisted Treeline offered a different way to play League as we know it, but what about the game mode that turned League from MOBA into a different game altogether? Only the true OGs will remember playing the original Dominion on the Crystal Scar. Dominion was a 5v5 capture and hold game mode where both teams tried to capture points around the map to destroy the enemy nexus. Each nexus started with 500 hit points, but their HP would only go down by your team either capturing the contested points of the map or securing a kill on an enemy champion. The Crystal Scar itself was a circular map, flanked with 5 capture points along the outer edge. All of these points started neutral and could be captured by any player after a brief channel time. Needless to say, playing Dominion was a lot different than playing Classic League, and the game mode offered a nice change of pace if you ever got tired of the same formula. Players started out with much more gold, even more than on Twisted Treeline, and had a much higher passive gold and experience generation, as well as increased resource regeneration. Recall took about half as long as in Classic, and death timers were reduced. Riot officially retired Dominion in February of 2016, citing a lack of popularity. Later, introducing the rotating game mode, definitely not Dominion. It's Dominion, later the same year, but it's just not the same. Dominion isn't the only game mode that Riot decided to discontinue. Anyone out there remember Hexakill?
Hexakill!
Hexakill was, well, it was exactly what it sounds like. It was a standard game of League on Summoner's Rift, but each team had 6 players instead of 5. It was released in 2014 and hasn't been seen in a number of years, with Riot releasing a statement saying that the move from 10 total champs on the map to 12 resulted in a lot of internal system issues. But I mean, if the server can handle Earth, what's 2 more champions? Another game mode that only OG players will remember is one that lives on in our nightmares. Never before have NPCs been so hard to beat. Yeah, I'm talking about Doombots, otherwise known as Nightmare Mode. Doombots was a game of co-op versus AI, but with a sadistic twist. The bots in Nightmare Mode were mutated, with comically buff stats and mutated abilities.
Run, dude, run! The size of that silence!
I'm out of here!
As the game progressed, the bots got even stronger, gaining passives and abilities from other completely unrelated champions. You could lane against a Lux who shot 6 lasers out of all directions for her ult, while also having a randomly triggered Amumu ult and a Zac passive. It was a complete bloodbath, and not for your team. In an extra hilarious step, after surviving 15 minutes in the game with the Doombots, a feat in itself, the 5 enemies would band together to summon a gigantic demonic Teemo bot that would stomp through the mid lane, destroying everything in its path. Nightmare Mode humbled all of us. Getting stomped by bots is something most of us haven't dealt with since our first days in League. And if that makes you feel old, I still have to tell you about the broken item that Riot couldn't balance and was forced to remove, and also the origins of one of the community's most beloved special events. But first, do you guys remember the absurd rune system old school players had to deal with? I'm not talking about the broken ones like Thundershock and Courage of the Colossus. I'm talking about marks, seals, glyphs, and quints. Not only did you have to painstakingly earn your rune slots one by one as you leveled up, but you also had to buy each rune with your hard-earned blue influence points. Not only that, but you couldn't edit your runes on the fly. You had to shell out thousands of your hard-earned points to buy enough runes for all situations. And I mean literally every single one. Back in the day, the hallmark of a true LOL veteran was whether or not they had all 20 rune pages unlocked, which, yeah, you only started with 2. Alongside the old rune system were masteries, another way to buff yourself before you even stepped on the rift. Similarly to the rune system, you unlocked 1 mastery point per level and chose between separate trees, which was the precursor to the current rune system as we know it today. Anyone else remember those sweet 2190 mastery guides? Now, while runes constantly get small changes and adjustments, the iconic Summoner's Rift seldom sees changes on the scale of Pre-Season 5. And only OG players remember the old map before that. The bright purple towers and minions, the comically small Baron and Dragon models, and of course, all the original jungle camps. In those days, there were no Void Grubs, Rift Herald, or even Scuttle Crab. Baron was the only purple monster in the pit, and there was no such things as elemental drakes. Just an overgrown lizard that gave you some golden experience. Gromp wasn't a thing, and neither were Krugs or Raptors. Instead, we had a white, golems, and wraiths. And I know we talked about jungle changes earlier on, but do you remember the really old days when junglers first got Hunter's Machete? Before that, they would just start boots and potions just like everyone else. When Hunter's Machete came out, junglers could upgrade it to either Spirit Stone or Madrid's Razor, though 99% of the players took Spirit Stone, which they could then further upgrade into either Spirit of the Elder Lizard for bonus AD, Spirit of the Spectral Wraith for bonus AP, or Spirit of the Ancient Golem for bonus health and armor. Now, all of those items have been sent to League Heaven. But just how many other items are there in League Heaven? Almost 300, if you can believe it. Don't worry, we won't talk about all of them, but we will talk about some of our favorites. We all know about Magi's Soul Stealer, granting us stacking ability power for every champion kill and assist.
I love it, man. You have so much damage.
But did you know there was an AD version too? Sword of the Occult granted 5 attack damage for every champion kill or assist for up to 100 bonus AD once completed. Like Magi's, you would lose half your stacks upon death. If you had the full 20 stacks, you also gained 20% bonus attack speed. There was even a tank version called Leviathan, where each stack granted you 32 bonus health up to 640, and at full stacks, you gained 15% damage reduction. Why Riot decided only to keep Magi's in the game and lose Sword of the Occult and Leviathan is beyond us, but one thing is for sure, seeing your teammate get these items either made you giggle with joy or smash your forehead into the keyboard. So there's AD, how about a discontinued AP item that Riot officially admitted was too strong on certain champions to even exist, prompting them to rework and eventually remove it altogether. Only real OGs will remember Deathfire Grasp, which was retired from Summoner's Rift in 2015. DFG was one of the original large rod Big 3 items. Back in the day, needlessly large rod could only be built into 3 items: Rabadon's Death Cap, Zhonya's Hourglass, and Deathfire Grasp. DFG gave bonus ability power and cooldown reduction. Ability haste. But the main event was its active. Deathfire's Grasp active ability dealt magic damage equal to 15% of the target's maximum health and increasing all incoming magic damage to the enemy by 15% for 4 seconds. It was an insane initiating item and was also useful for quick and clean AP assassinations. DFG was a scary item in the hands of a fed mage, and that's probably why Riot saw the need to get rid of it except for including it in Nexus Blitz. But when it was active on the Rift, you would see ADCs melt faster than butter in the microwave. And another thing old school League players should remember are the days when your boots didn't end up at boots 2. Yeah, I'm talking about boot enchantments. After finishing whichever boots you choose, you had 5 enchantment options for those little beauties: Alacrity, Führer, Captain, Distortion, and Home Guard. Distortion lowered the cooldown of movement-based summoner spells like Ghost and Flash and gave extra speed boosts when using those abilities.
Distortion boots!
Wow. He's that way, Trace. The other way.
Distortion boots, Ghosty again! Yeah!
Furor gave you a decaying speed boost when you hit a champion with a single target spell or ability. Captain gave you a speed boost to teammates running towards you. Alacrity just gave you a flat movement speed bonus, and Home Guard was, well, Home Guard. It gave you a massive decaying speed boost whenever you stepped into your fountain. We didn't just automatically get Home Guard every game. Some of us had to earn it and pay our hard-earned gold for it. While boot enchantments increased the strategic diversity in builds, they were ultimately removed since 99% of the players only bought Home Guards. But while players could get behind Riot's decision to remove boot enchantments, one thing players talk about to this day is just how lazy Riot has gotten with special events. Because back in the day, Riot's Harrowing and Snowdown Showdown events truly felt unique and special. Summoner's Rift as a whole was transformed with a spooky, nocturnal theme for the Harrowing event, but even more beloved was the snow-themed Summoner's Rift that went live during the holiday seasons. There was something special about seeing our favorite champs get silly. Halloween-themed costumes and festive skins that looked completely out of place on Summoner's Rift. But back then, Riot was much more focused on delivering memorable experiences rather than making money. Compared to the generic event passes and uninspired skin lines we have today, the original Harrowing and Snowdown Showdown events hold a special place in our hearts.
Searching, seeking, killing. This time is known as the Harrowing.
These are just some of the things that only OG League players will remember. The game we know and love has gone through a lot of changes in the last 15 years, and assuming that disgruntled players don't storm Riot HQ and burn it to the ground soon, we're going to see a lot more changes in the years to come. And those of us that feel old for playing the original Poppy or jumping on for a game of 3v3 on the tree line will start to feel even more ancient than we already do. Thank you for taking this trip down memory lane, and thank you for watching Silver Scrapes.